Business Meets Perspective with expert guests, real-time analysis, and stories that matter to you. We go beyond headlines to bring you the full picture.
Join us every morning as we break down the numbers, decode the policies, and spotlight the people shaping our economy. This is Business Money. Good morning. You're welcome to the Business Morning segment right here on Business Day television. And of course, our first conversation this morning will be centering on how secure coding practices protect businesses and users. And joining us to break this down is Olaitan Almaroof. He's a cybersecurity and software engineering expert. He'll be helping us understand how securing coding practices serve as a first line of defense in protecting businesses and their users. Good morning, Olaitan. It's good to have you on the Business Morning.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here once again.
All right, so let's start very simple. When we talk about securing coding, what does that really mean in practical terms?
So in practical terms, secure coding is the practice of building a house where the doors don't just look closed, but in reality, they are actually bolted and the windows are unbreakable. It basically means writing software in a way that anticipates and resists attack. Instead of just making a feature work. For example, the feature could be, okay, this user can log in, but secure coding ensures that the feature cannot be abused, which technically means an attacker cannot bypass this login. So let's look at this from a real life scenario, right? Imagine a bank's ATM. The standard coding ensures that when you put in your card and your PIN, you get some money, right? But with secure coding, it ensures that if someone tries to trick the machine with a fake card or a piece of wire, it detects the anomaly and shut down rather than spitting out money for the person.
So from your experience, because you actually sound very experienced, from your experience, how vulnerable are most businesses today due to poor coding experiences or practices?
The answer is they are actually highly vulnerable because in 2026, roughly 75% of successful cyber attacks involve exploiting human-made error software. And the reality of things is many businesses are digital glass houses. They look modern on the outside, but they are structurally fragile. And as we integrate more AI-generated code, the speed of development has increased, but so as the frequency of overlooked vulnerabilities like missing input validation. So let's look at this from a real life scenario, right? A popular Nigerian retail app once left a small backdoor in their code for testing, right? But then they forgot to remove it before launch. And within weeks, hackers were able to find this out and they redirected thousands of customer payments to private offshore accounts. So that's the reality of things right now.
So walk us through some of the most common coding mistakes that expose system to cybersecurity attacks. You just mentioned one now, but walk us through some of the most common coding mistakes.
So I'll talk about the big three, right? The big three remains injection, broken access control, and insecure design, right? With injection, when the system trusts user input too much. And for the broken access control, when the keys to the system are poorly managed. And with the insecure design, when you're building a feature without thinking about how a thief might actually use it. So now let's look at this from a real life scenario. Let's think of a web form like a visitor's logbook, right? And if a hacker writes a command instead of their name and the system execute that command, they could delete the entire database, right? It's just like a guest writing, give me the key to the vault in a logbook, and the security guard actually is doing it.
All right. So at what stage in software development should, security
Yeah.
ideally be introduced, and why is that timing so critical?
The reality of things is it must be introduced at the design phase, because this is what we call the shift left, right? Because the earlier you catch a security flaw, the cheaper it is to fix. Fixing a
Right.
security bug in production is probably like 30 to 20 times more expensive than fixing it during the initial design.
All right. Many companies, they invest heavily in cybersecurity tools. So how does secure coding compare to these tools in terms of effectiveness?
Sorry, can you take the question again?
So I said many companies,
Yeah,
we all know they invest heavily in cybersecurity tools.
yeah.
So how does secure coding compare to these tools in terms of effectiveness?
So when you look at tools like firewalls and antivirus, they are like
Mhm.
security guard that are standing outside your building. And
Mhm.
for secure coding, it is the structural integrity of the building itself. So you can hire 100 guards, but if your walls are made of cardboard,
Right.
what it technically means is a thief will eventually find a way into those tools because they are reactive, and secure coding is proactive.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's look at the non-technical business owners now. What are the real risks of ignoring secure coding practices when it comes to them?
So, for non-technical business owner, right? Um, the answer is it's not just about getting hacked. The risk
Okay.
includes financial ruin, because the average cost of a data breach in 2026 has climbed to nearly $4.9 million.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is legal liability, because under the NDPA, you can face massive fines for failing to protect citizens' data.
Right.
And another thing is the reputational suicide, because trust is the currency of the digital age. So once that is lost, your customers really come back.
Mm. Now, speaking about the customers, I like to, speak to the customers as people who don't really understand what is happening behind the scene.
Yeah.
So, how do secure coding practices directly protect the everyday users? That's the end users, the customers, people who don't really realize what is happening when it is happening. So, how does secure coding practices directly protect them?
So the end users, right? They are the silent protectors, because
Yeah.
when a developer uses secure coding, they are ensuring your credit card details are encrypted, your private
Mhm.
messages stay private, and your
Mhm.
identities isn't stolen. So these users don't see it, but they feel the safety.
Right. Okay. You were saying something about regulation
Yeah.
previously before now. So let's talk about that in a broad way,
Yeah.
regulation and compliance. Do you really think Nigerian businesses are doing enough when it comes to building secure systems?
So the reality of things is we are improving, right? Because the Nigerian Data Protection Commission has made great strides, and many top tier banks and fintechs are world class. But
Mm.
however, for the middle market, the SMEs and growing startups,
Yeah.
there's still that lag. And compliance is often seen as a checkbox rather than a culture. It's meant to be
Mm.
a culture.
Mhm.
So the reality of things is we need to move from being compliant to being secure.
Mm. Okay, with the rise of AI, because
Yeah.
we always have to talk about AI when we talk about things like this, with the rise of AI and more complex digital platforms, do you think developers are facing new security challenges?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, because with AI can write codes in seconds, but it often writes insecure code because
Mm.
it lacks that security intuition, right? So we are also seeing adversarial AI, where hackers can use AI to find the vulnerabilities in code faster than any human could. So it's
Mm.
an arm race, it's an AI versus AI battle.
Mm. So, correct me if I'm wrong. I understand that developers, they
Yeah,
hardly, have trainings,
yeah,
seminars, and everyone is just a lot in whatever it is that they do. So,
yeah.
do you think that developer training and also awareness will play a role in having to strengthen cybersecurity overall?
The reality of things is training is the most critical link, right? You can have the best tools, but if your developers don't know why a certain coding pattern is dangerous,
Mhm.
they will keep making the same mistake. So security is a mindset. It's not just a
Mm.
skill set.
Right. So if a company wants to start improving its security today, what
Yeah.
are the first practical steps you would recommend?
So the first step I'll recommend is security audit, right? As an organization, be it an SME, be it a large enterprise, you need to find out where you are currently vulnerable. Then the next thing would be implementing code reviews because you never want to let any person's code go live without a second set of eyes. So you need to review all your developers' code. Then
Mm.
finally, you need to adopt a framework and industry standards like the OWASP. You can use that to guide your development.
Right. So looking ahead, like before I let you go, how important will secure coding be in shaping the future of digital trust?
So it will be the foundation, right? It's going to be the foundation as we move forward to a world of everything digital, from health records to voting. Secure coding is the only thing that is standing between a functioning society and digital chaos. And without it, there is no trust, and without trust, the entire digital economy crumbles.
All right. Before I let you go again, I want to sound really controversial and I want to come back to the AI question. I think it was on this platform that we also had a conversation about it. And then, one of the guests mentioned that, yeah, you can use AI to actually view codes and also use the same AI to actually fight it. Don't you
Yeah,
think that is a bit that there's really no regulation when it comes to it? Using a particular, technology to build something
yeah.
and the same technology can be used to bring it down. Don't you think there is no regulation to it? And AI is actually like, a chaos when it comes to cybersecurity, when it comes to building tools. What do you think about that?
The reality of things is for every organization, right? For every organization, you need to have baseline security policy in place. You need to have some sort of AI assessments, before your users start using AI. You need to have
Right.
you need to have some sort of data protection rules, and you need to have admins that are able to see what users are prompting in terms of AI,
Mm-hmm.
in this way. Because the reality of things is, for me, when I get on calls with several organizations, we usually tell them you need to have an assessment, right, before you start using AI, before your user starts using AI. So there should be some set of standard baseline policies that guide the usage of AI in the organization. In as much as AI can help in terms of productivity, it can also be disastrous. And that is why you want to have that assessment before you start deploying AI tools or before end users start using AI. And in a situation whereby you have your users using the free set of AI tools like the Google Gemini, ChatGPT, we've seen situations whereby organizations have been able to block their end users from using such AI, and
Mm-hmm.
making AI tools like Copilot, that is paid, available for users to use, so that there can be some sort of monitoring, there can be some sort of governance of the data these end users are prompting into this AI solution. So, in summary, for every organization, you need to have some sort of AI assessment whereby you're able to control the usage of AI. Because, in as much as AI can be very productive, it can also be very disastrous.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Alliance. It's really good to have you on the Business Morning.
Thank you.
All right, we're speaking to Olainto Almaroof. He's a cybersecurity and software engineering expert, and he was helping us understand how secure coding practices serves as the first line of defense in protecting businesses and its users. Of course, we'll go on a short break. When we come back, we're going to be having the second part of our conversation on Business Morning. Just stay with us.
the impeccable credibility, professionalism, and business savviness of BusinessDay. If you really mean business in Nigeria, start your day with BusinessDay.
BusinessDay is West Africa's leading provider of business intelligence and information, delivering premium content across diversified media platforms, including online, mobile, and print. Since its inception in 2001 with a weekly newspaper production, BusinessDay has expanded its reach to provide exclusive content accessible through print, mobile, and online channels. Our premium offerings are further enriched with syndicated content from esteemed sources like the Financial Times, The Economist, and the Harvard Business Review. At BusinessDay, our mission is clear: to be the foremost provider of business and financial content, empowering readers to make informed decisions in Nigeria and Africa. Since our establishment, we have been committed to delivering insightful, relevant, and accurate information about Nigeria's business and finance environment, while contextualizing the impact of global events. We monitor the stock market, analyze the companies driving it, and report on government policies and their economic implications.
For being consistent in organizing these CEO forums for almost the last 14 years, I think this was a commendation, and I think something that will encourage them to continue.
From decoding market trends to dissecting economic shifts, we offer actionable investment ideas and serve as a compass for decision makers navigating complexity. Beyond headlines, BusinessDay fosters discussions on critical economic issues through impactful conferences and events. These platforms bring industry leaders together to share narratives that drive innovation and spark meaningful dialogues. Our events galvanize connections, bridging the gap between inspiration and achievement. For businesses seeking visibility, our strong digital presence offers unparalleled opportunities, with millions of followers across social media and a dynamic website attracting visitors from within and outside Nigeria. BusinessDay is the ideal platform to boost visibility for your products and services. If you're looking for in-depth analysis and expert opinions on Nigeria and Africa's business landscape, BusinessDay is your guide.
Good morning and welcome to the BDTV Breakfast Show. I am Bethel Ogunjobi.
My name is Elizabeth Musa.
And this is the social listening segment on the BDTV Breakfast Show.
We're talking about the Fly Nigeria Act. Can you give us a background into what this is about?
We are here today on the streets of Lagos, Nigeria, to gather opinion about a pressing issue.
I go look at the cost of petrol.
We get very Nigeria with the suffer.
The income is not really increasing, but the prices of items are increased.
Nothing like savings again. No. You only pray for that money to reach you that month.
There's a lot of high pressure, a lot of stress. There's a lot of high targets to be met.
I was quite strict. In my mind, I said, nothing from my hand, my picking will spoil.
To allow all banks and all the players in the space
15% inflation target achievable in 2025.
The command and vision philosophy of both the Chief of Defense Staff, the Chief of Army Staff, and indeed all the service chiefs.
Information is everywhere, but insights, that is rare. BusinessDay Premium gives you analysis, data, and context that keep you ahead. BusinessDay Premium. Read deeper, decide smarter.
They say money never sleeps. Wake up to clarity, insights, and the stories driving business in Nigeria and beyond.
From the heartbeat of small and medium enterprises to the pulse of national economic policy, this is where business meets perspective. With expert guests, real-time analysis, and stories that matter to you, we go beyond headlines to bring you the full picture.
Join us every morning as we break down the numbers, decode the policies, and spotlight the people shaping our economy. This is Business Morning.
We are not just showing off businesses, but telling the stories behind them. The hustle, the art, the orders, and the wins. Startup Spotlight, showing every Monday on Business Day television.
Welcome to the Triumph Against Odd podcast.
Most people go through their lives without knowing what their superpower is, right? But if you're lucky enough and determined enough to find your superpower before you get to a certain stage of your life, you will be incredibly successful.
Look, the first thing is you just decide not to look at the challenges, because if you do, it's going to end you.
The closest thing I think is that I had a deeply military background, which is a bit of a never say die background.
I saw an opportunity in non-interest banking, and I felt that the demand was there. There was pent-up demand for it. People were yearning for it, and I felt that if we did it properly, if we brought in professionalism into it, and if we brought in our experiences, our various experiences from various backgrounds into it, that it could succeed.
Very few people do that because very few people explore their superpowers. They just explore bread and butter issues. I need to eat, and
Yes, there will be challenges. This is a very difficult business environment. The government keeps working on how to make business easier.
The first problem to overcome is really just starting, right? We thought about this idea for over 2 years before we even took the first step.
You cannot ignore this country. No, and to be from here, I think is an incredible privilege. Nigeria will be ascendant in my lifetime.
Stakeholders at the BusinessDay Tax Conference in Abuja say Nigeria's new tax reform framework aims to promote investment, protect low-income earners, and support economic growth. Uche Waleke, Professor of Capital Markets and the Director of the Institute of Capital Market Studies at Nasarawa State University, said while tax reforms often trigger anxiety among citizens, the new framework is deliberately designed to be pro-poor, pro-investment, and pro-growth. He explained that the reforms seek to balance revenue generation with economic expansion, noting that while government needs sustainable revenue to fund development priorities, the tax system must remain competitive, predictable, and supportive of businesses.
The reforms embodied in the Nigerian Tax Act 2025 represent one of the most comprehensive restructuring of Nigeria's revenue systems in decades. For many years, Nigeria has operated with a tax-to-GDP ratio significantly below global and African averages. This has constrained the government's capacity to fund critical investments in infrastructure, healthcare, education, and social protection. At the same time, the existing tax system has often been characterized by complexity, multiple levies, and outdated laws. The recent reforms are therefore designed to address these structural weaknesses by modernizing tax administration, improving efficiency, broadening the tax base, and strengthening fairness. At its core, the new tax regime seeks to strike a delicate balance between revenue generation and economic growth. On the one hand, the government needs sustainable revenue to finance development priorities and reduce dependence on borrowing. On the other hand, the tax system must remain competitive, predictable, and supportive of investment and enterprise.
Chairman of the National Tax Implementation Committee, Joseph Tegbe, said the reforms are also designed to strengthen the finances of state and local governments. According to him, the restructuring of tax administration and revenue sharing mechanisms will increase the share of tax revenue flowing to subnational governments. Under the new tax framework, states' share of value-added tax revenue rises from 50 to 55%, while the federal government share declines.
In FRS, you can actually sign on to the system and see how much taxes a company has been charged, how much withholding tax credits you have, how much is been debited to your account, and all those things. We're going to see more transparency, so you can question these things. This will reduce leakages and ensure taxes actually reach government. The second thing is digital tax systems. Tax authorities are now moving towards digital platforms. This is reducing the need for physical interactions. And that was what Shegun said here categorically. All payments are now automated. Nigerian government, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the intention is not to increase taxes of individuals. And you will see the bands have changed to the benefit of the taxpayers. But what we're trying to do is to widen the net. Before, nobody will talk about those who don't have unregistered businesses. Now we're talking about people who have unregistered businesses. What will surprise you is there are people in Oshodi and the guys in Amowo of Odofin and all these traders, electronic sales, those who are doing billions and they are not paying taxes. So we are putting those into tax net so that they can also pay. And we want you as Nigerians to get to a stage where more people will contribute, the body will not be on few people, and we can also ask government for specific benefits. Again, if I recap what I've said, no tax for low-income earners. Any of you, any individual that is earning less than 800,000 per year, will not pay income tax.
Olusegun Adeshokon, Executive Secretary of the Joint Revenue Board, said the initiative will be implemented in collaboration with law enforcement agencies to dismantle illegal tax collection networks affecting the movement of goods and services nationwide.
You remit taxes to your pension scheme, that's your own contribution to the pension scheme. It's not taxed. Your contributions to the National Housing Fund is not taxed. Your contributions to NSITF, not taxed. If you are paying interest, if you have a mortgage, you are staying in a house, your own house, and you were able to acquire through mortgage, and you prepay your mortgage, the interest on that mortgage is not taxed. And also the rent relief, which is capped at 500K, is not taxed. So we expect more Nigerians, particularly those who are self-employed, to subscribe to these schemes. Because it's not just that you are saving, because you're also saving for the future. Those savings are totally exempt from tax.
Also speaking, Michael Ango announced plans to digitize tax collection across the Federal Capital Territory. Ango says the move will phase out street-level enforcement commonly associated with unofficial tax collectors while improving compliance through stakeholder engagement, public education, and targeted enforcement. Stakeholders say effective implementation of the reforms will be key to creating a fairer, more efficient tax system that supports economic growth and national development.
Information is everywhere, but insights, that is rare. BusinessDay Premium gives you analysis, data, and context that keep you ahead. BusinessDay Premium. Read deeper, decide smarter.
They say money never sleeps. Wake up to clarity, insights, and the stories driving business in Nigeria and beyond.
From the heartbeat of small and medium enterprises to the pulse of national economic policy, this is where business meets perspective. With expert guests, real-time analysis, and stories that matter to you, we go beyond headlines to bring you the full picture.
Join us every morning as we break down the numbers, decode the policies, and spotlight the people shaping our economy. This is Business Money.
We are not just showing off businesses, but telling the stories behind them. The hustle, the art, the orders, and the wins.
Startup Spotlight, showing every Monday on Business Day television.
Welcome to the Triumph Against Odd podcast.
Most people go through their lives without knowing what their superpower is, right? But if you're lucky enough and determined enough to find your superpower before you get to a certain stage of your life, you will be incredibly successful.
Look, the first thing is you just decide not to look at the challenges, because if you do, it's going to end you.
The closest thing I think is that I had a deeply military background, which is a bit of a never say die background.
I saw an opportunity in non-interest banking, and I felt that the demand was there. There was pent-up demand for it. People were yearning for it, and I felt that if we did it properly, if we brought in professionalism into it, and if we brought in our experiences, our various experiences from various backgrounds into it, that it could succeed.
Very few people do that because very few people explore their superpowers. They just explore bread and butter issues. I need to eat, and
Yes, there will be challenges. This is a very difficult business environment. The government keeps working on how to make business easier.
The first problem to overcome is really just starting, right? We thought about this idea for over 2 years before we even took the first step.
You cannot ignore this country. No, and to be from here, I think is an incredible privilege. Nigeria will be ascendant in my lifetime.
This is Business Week, a weekly program brought to you by Business Day Television.
For many years, we've talked about the need to, essentially diversify our revenue stream away from, the huge dependence on oil revenues. It looks like that is happening now. So that means that we're better protected when, you have these wide fluctuations in oil prices and all of that. So
But as you say, and I agree, that we should commend the government. At least revenues are not falling. There have been times in the past when we recorded drops in revenue. That's not the case today. We're seeing revenues actually going up.
Increasingly, we can see the developed countries focusing on renewable energy and so on and so forth, which means that in the long run, we must look for alternative sources to funding.
So the government says that crude oil theft has essentially come to an end.
We need to do more to ensure that we totally eliminate crude oil theft and start to think of how to boost production. But it's a good first step. By eliminating crude oil theft, it also creates an incentive for international oil companies to probably return and start to take up more projects in the upstream industries.
Stay ahead with Business Day Mobile, your gateway to Nigeria's most trusted business news, market insights, and expert analysis. With a Business Day Mobile app, you enjoy more than just news. You gain a seamless, intuitive platform designed to keep you informed and empowered. From exclusive articles to in-depth market trends, the app delivers the stories that matter most. Why Business Day Mobile? For premium access, for a clean, responsive design, for a smarter navigation, for customizable alerts, and for all-in-one business hub. Whether you're a business leader, investor,
policymaker or enthusiast, Business Day Mobile brings you closer to the insights shaping Nigeria's business landscape. Download today and put authoritative business journalism right at your fingertips, anytime, anywhere.
And you're welcome back to Business Morning right here on Business Day Television. And our second conversation this morning, we're going to be examining the role of back-end development in fintech and e-commerce success. And joining us now is Oluwatimileyin Okusi. He's a back-end developer. He's going to be helping us understand the critical role back-end systems play in the success of fintech and e-commerce businesses. Good morning, Oluwatimileyin. It's good to have you on Business Morning.
Good morning, Deborah. Thank you for having me today.
All right, let's start off from the basics. We like to start from the basics here. So what exactly is back-end development and why is it important for fintech and e-commerce platforms?
So back-end development is basically the engine behind every digital product. So it is like the server-side logic, the databases and the APIs that power everything users interact with, even though you can't see it directly. So in fintech and e-commerce, that engine has to do a lot of the heavy lifting. So every payment that is made, every account that is verified, every product inventory that you're trying to buy that's updated in real time, the backend is doing all of that work. So without a strong backend, you simply cannot deliver the speed, the security, or even the reliability that a lot of customers, obviously in this sectors, expect. So in my opinion, I would say it is the difference between a platform that scales and one that pretty much collapses under pressure.
So help us distinguish the difference between a strong backend system from a weak backend system.
All right. So in my opinion, I'll say like the biggest distinction really is how a system behaves under stress. So a weak backend tends to be built reactively. Basically, like things get added as problems come up, and over time, you end up with this very fragile setup that nobody really fully understands because it's kind of like a couple of patchwork all brought together. But a strong backend, on the other hand, is deliberately built with a lot of thought gone into it. So it is reliable, it is observable, which means you can actually see what is happening inside it. And it is designed to fail gracefully with fail safes already built in. So because there will definitely be points where there will be failures, but as long as you can pinpoint where those failures are coming from, and why there is that failure, it pretty much makes the backend very strong, because then your team or the business's team can then address the issue, compared to a weak backend where you can't really pinpoint it because it's just a lot of like patchwork all together and there's no exact proper documentation and consistency throughout the system.
Right. So in fintech especially, transactions needs to be fast and also secure. So how does backend development ensure both speed and security?
Right. So for speed and security, it can feel like they pull in opposite directions, but good backend design actually brings them together. So for speed, you're basically looking at things like efficient database indexing, caching, and asynchronous processing. So the system is not blocking on every single operation. Whereas for security, you have got encryption in transit and at rest. So there's token-based authentication and very strict IMPI validation. And IMPI validation is pretty much just making sure like the date is correct format and things like that. So, but the key thing is, in my opinion, is that security should not be something you bolt on afterwards. It needs to be built in from the very beginning. So when you design with both security and speed in mind at the same time, you avoid the expensive retrofits that slows down a system later and honestly introduces vulnerabilities that you didn't even plan for.
All right. So what are some of the biggest backend challenges that companies face when they're handling large volume of transactions?
Right. So I'll say the first challenge I see most often is database contention, which is basically when too many operations are competing for the same records at the same time, and they end up with serious bottlenecks. The second I'll say is data consistency. So in distributed systems, making sure a transaction either fully completes or fully rolls back is genuinely hard to get right, because you don't want, for example, a payment transaction for a product to hang in the middle. It's not complete. Your money is not rolling back. The money is not being received on the data on the company's end. So that is one big issue that obviously is very difficult to get right. And then there's also latency, which what works perfectly fine at like 1,000 transactions a day can completely fail at 1,000,000 transactions a day, which is where that scalability aspect comes in. So then there's the final one, which is like a lot of companies pretty much find out they have a problem when customers start complaining rather than through their own monitoring system. And that reactive nature, in my opinion, is where a lot of damage is made.
So how important, you spoke about scalability, I was going to ask about that, but you already touched on that. So how important is database management in ensuring smooth operations for e-commerce and fintech platforms?
Right, I'd say it is foundationally important. The database is basically the heart of most fintech and e-commerce. Everything ultimately reads from or writes to the database. So a poor database design could cause things like unoptimized queries, missing indexes or tables that were never built for the volume they are now handling, which is honestly like one of the most common sources of performance problems I've come across. Good database design, in my opinion, I'll say, means regular query analysis, thoughtful design, proper indexing, and solid backup and recovery strategies. And it also means choosing the right type of database for the job. Relational databases where you need transactional integrity, but potentially something different for specific workloads. So getting this right early on saves a lot of pain later, because if you're trying to then build a database to work after a platform has been built, it becomes very, very hard, because the initial database nature wasn't thought through with the building of the platform.
All right. Downtime is actually one of the biggest challenges that affects businesses. So explain to us what role backend development play in ensuring reliability and uptime.
So downtime is basically a reputational commercial disaster for any platform, and backend architecture is the main lever you have to prevent it. So reliability gets built through redundancy. That means no single point of failure, automatic failover, and systems designed to degrade gracefully rather than crash completely. So things like health checks and circuit breakers are really important patterns, because they allow a system to detect and isolate a problem before it cascades into something much worse. And then there is the operational discipline side of it. Clear run books, on-call processes, post-incident reviews. So the goal, in my opinion, is to never be surprised. The best backend teams have already modeled the failure scenarios before they actually happen.
So let's look at the fintech or startups that are just entering the market. Now, what backend decision can they make or break their success early on?
Right. So the biggest early decision is probably around your technology stack and whether it can actually grow with you. A lot of startups choose what is familiar rather than what is appropriate, and that mismatch really costs them when they start to scale. I would also say do not over-engineer at the start, but do make a clean architectural choices. And also there's separating your business logic from your data access layer costs almost nothing upfront, but saves you a huge amount of time of refactoring, pretty much a huge amount of refactoring time. And in fintech specifically, security and compliance are not optional. So building with regulatory requirements in mind from day one is way cheaper than trying to retrofit compliance into a system that was never designed for it. So basically, I'll say start simple, but start right.
So explain to us how integrations like payment gateways and third-party services depend on strong backend systems.
Yeah, so third-party integrations are basically only as reliable as the backend that is managing them. Payment gateways, identity verification services, logistics APIs, all of these introduce external dependencies that can fail, change their contract, or just respond really slowly. So a strong backend handles that by building solid integration layers with proper error handling, retry logic, when things fail, and timeouts as well. It also means abstracting those integrations behind clean interfaces. So if you ever need to swap a provider, which happens more often than you would think, you're not rewriting your entire code base to do it. I like to think of it this way, like the backend as the conductor orchestrating all of these services. So, and if the conductor does not have control of the room, the whole performance falls apart. And doing it this way makes it easier for companies to move from one service provider to the other without necessarily having to change the whole code or the whole way the platform was built initially, and to still ensure that it can run smoothly, even though there's a change on the back end that the customers don't see.
Right. So, with cyber threats on the rise, how can backend developers build systems that are both resilient and also secure?
Right. Security really has to be designed in like from the start, not added on afterwards. So, and that begins with a threat modeling mindset, basically understanding what you're protecting and what attacks are most likely to happen before you even write a single line of code. And practically that means enforcing least privilege. So every component only has access to what it has been strictly given access to. And that means also means encrypting sensitive data, sanitizing all inputs to prevent injection attacks, and having solid audit logs. So you have a clear trail if something does go wrong. Resilience comes from layering your defenses. So no single control should be the only thing standing between an attack and your data. And in fintech, regular penetration testing and dependency audits are honestly non-negotiable. It has to be done to ensure that the system itself is very secure, to avoid outsiders.
Right. So let's talk trends now. Do you think technologies like cloud computing and microservices are changing how backend systems are built?
100%. I think they are, and quite fundamentally, cloud computing has basically removed the ceiling on scalability for most organizations. You can provision infrastructure in minutes that would have taken like about months to set up on premise. And microservices have changed how teams think about systems design entirely. So instead of one large application, you've got many smaller independently deployable services, each responsible for one specific thing. That enables faster development and much more resilient systems. But I would offer a caution here. Microservices introduce their own complexity, particularly around how those services communicate with each other and how you manage them at scale. They're a really powerful tool, but only when the engineering team and the culture around it is mature enough to use them properly.
All right, finally, Oluwatimileye, if I let you go, for businesses looking to scale, what backend investment should they prioritize to stay competitive?
Right, that's a very good question. I'd say prioritize three things. The first is observability. Basically, invest in monitoring, alerting, and tracing so you genuinely understand what your system is doing at all times. You cannot optimize what you cannot see. The second is automation. So CI/CD pipelines, automated testing, infrastructure as code. These reduce human error and let you move quickly without sacrificing stability. And the third thing is your overall security posture. As you scale, your attack surface grows and the cost of a breach goes right along with it. So the business that stays competitive, in my opinion, are the ones that treat their backend not as a cost center, but as a strategic asset. So basically, it's the infrastructure that either enables your growth or quietly throttles it.
Thank you so much, Oluwatimileye, for joining us this morning on Business Morning.
Right. Thank you very much, Deborah, for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. We're speaking to Oluwatimileye Okusi. He's a backend developer, and he was helping us understand the critical role backend systems play in the success of fintech. And of course, until we'll come your way again tomorrow, I am Deborah Eze. Do have yourself a beautiful morning.
Information is everywhere, but insights, That is rare. Business Day Premium gives you analysis, data, and context that keep you ahead. Business Day Premium. Read deeper, decide smarter.
They say money never sleeps. Wake up to clarity, insights, and the stories driving business in Nigeria and beyond.
From the heartbeat of small and medium enterprises to the pulse of national economic policy, this is where business meets perspective. With expert guests, real-time analysis, and stories that matter to you, we go beyond headlines to bring you the full picture.
Join us every morning as we break down the numbers, decode the policies, and spotlight the people shaping our economy. This is Business Morning.
As conversations around leadership continue to evolve, the spotlight is shifting towards inclusion, impact, and purpose. At the Women in Leadership Summit, themed Gift to Gain, Power, Purpose, and the Economics of Inclusive Leadership, leaders across business, academia, and policy came together to examine what it truly means to lead in today's world. The summit, put together by the conversationalist Brooks and Blake and Business Day Media, explored how inclusive leadership is no longer just a moral imperative, but a strategic advantage.
Women are the primary caregivers of their children. They run their homes. And so they don't have the same freedoms that men have. They're also bound by very traditional ideas about the role of women. And sometimes that's very difficult to surmount. So for any woman who enters the private sector, be it an SME or a very large organization, she's competing with men who traditionally, all the structures are put in place that are favorable to men. Men are not the primary caregivers of children. They can be in the office for long hours without consequence. But for women, that's not the case. And so it's so much more difficult for women. So when we talk about diversity and inclusion, what is required is for organizations to recognize these differences and put structure and processes in place that are friendly to women and support them and allow them to excel.
Speakers highlighted that organizations that prioritize people, empower diverse voices, and invest in sustainable practices are better positioned for long-term growth.
Leadership is about, at least that's my definition, it's not about bossing people, but influencing them, not only to achieve goals, but to be a better version of themselves. Everything about being female is meant to minimize you. And so it does take a lot of courage to go against the grain. So it's that, and it's so you have to be intentional about being yourself, that person inside that wants to jump but says, oh no, girls don't jump. So you have to keep talking to yourself. That's the nice ants that I was talking about, that it tells you to conform, to minimize, not to speak loud. You want to put up your hand, you do it at your shoulder just in case, that thing that just says merge into the background, don't rock the boat. That's how we've been brought up. That's what a good woman is. So you need to fight that in your head, and it's tough. So it takes courage to go against the grain.
At the core of the discussions was the idea that leadership is about creating value beyond profit, ensuring that success is shared across stakeholders from employees to communities and the wider economy. Participants also emphasized the need for intentional leadership where given, whether through mentorship, opportunity, or equitable systems, becomes the pathway to gaining trust, innovation, and lasting impact.
Inclusive leadership is something that we all experience, even from our homes. We have mothers, we have sisters, and we know the roles that they play in our lives. So I believe we should start taking it from inside out. Apart from getting to do it in the corporate level, we should start bottom up from home, train our girls to be leaders, train our sisters by our mothers, because when you save a mother, you save a family. So I think that is what we should start as next action for all of us.
For many in attendance, the summit was both a learning experience and a call to action, to lead with purpose and to build systems that work for everyone. As the conversation on leadership continues to gain traction, the message from the summit is clear. The future of leadership lies in the balance between power, purpose, and the people. My name is Elizabeth Musa, reporting for Business Day Television.